So we're here at Jabba's court, and we're asking the big question of the week, which is: would you welcome a return for the character Jyn Erso to Star Wars live action? And Paul, this is based off of a comment from Felicity Jones to Screen
Yeah,
Rant about the character, where she said that she'll never say goodbye to the character. She's going to live on. She could appear in many different ways, with it being Star Wars, whether it be a hologram or something else. And pretty much anything is completely possible in the Star Wars universe. So, based on that, Paul, would you have the character of Jyn Erso back on screen?
Jyn Erso was a brilliant character. In fact, I watched Rogue One earlier today. ITV2 have been playing all the Star Wars films.
Yeah,
Um,
it's you could almost go back and watch the start of the trilogy that they started last
yeah,
weekend.
that's it. But I thought the character of Jyn Erso is fantastic. The ending of Rogue One pretty much does seal her fate.
Yes.
Unless they beamed off the planet, who knows? But no. So it's unlikely that there would be anything moving forward. Although,
Even I was going to say, even at the start, our kind of character's kind of limited because she's kind of rescued and nobody really knew who she was. It was kind of really
exactly.
the start of her story.
So she doesn't know Andor, for
No,
example.
her
If she does
father,
appear,
on the other hand, has
yeah,
probably got a story to tell.
yes. So we could see him in Andor season two, and then possibly, there might be sort of like he pops off and well, no, because he hasn't seen her for such a long time, has he? He hasn't seen her for
That's true.
15 years. Yeah. It's a complicated sort of backstory, so it's one that would be quite tricky to sort of do anything, even leading up to Rogue One like they've done with Andor. But who's to say? I mean, they could do something like that, you
Yeah,
know?
I think it's a popular character, a popular film,
Yeah, yeah,
fantastic actress.
yeah.
I don't think you could do anything with the character Jyn Erso alongside the Rebel Alliance.
No,
And you could perhaps do something with her alongside Saw Gerrera,
yeah,
um, a more rough and ready. Um, I was going to say pirates, but don't want to compare it to Skeleton Crew. But not quite a rebel, but more a rogue, should we say, out in the galaxy a little bit.
yeah, yeah.
The purpose of that story, I'm not too sure.
Seems purely fan service, doesn't it,
Yeah,
really?
it does a little bit.
Yeah.
So
So
it would
yeah,
have to
she's
be
kind
her and Saw Gerrera, and I think Jack there. Mentioning Saw as well. See a younger
yeah,
Jyn Erso with Saw, perhaps.
yeah, that's a possibility. Yeah. Yeah, it's very difficult because they kind of boxed the character into it being one story. Um, it's got a meeting at the beginning of the film and very much an end to the character by the time the film comes to an end. Um, so yeah, as much as she would love to do something, possibly the only thing would be holograms, like she's hinted at there. I don't know.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a
it's a
shame.
difficult one. I think I would welcome the character back because I love the character.
Yeah,
Um, there is avenues you could bring the character back, but is it necessity? So it becomes a little bit fan service, and it does become story driven. It kind of feels like a little bit.
yeah.
So you've had a very complete arc, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think we should necessarily bring characters back um, purely because we like that character. It should be driven by the plot. Um, Jack making a comment here that if there's an age factor to it as well. If you're going to put her on screen as a kid with Cassian, then the question becomes, what's Cass's secret to a youthful look? Yeah, it's a difficult one. I like her as an actress. I like the portrayal. I don't know how you get her back on screen in a meaningful
Yeah,
way.
yeah. It is. I mean, of all the characters that have uh, that you would like to see come back, I could see her return being the most difficult to explain, even more difficult than Palpatine.
that becomes the problem when you try and sandwich a character back in for um, without purpose. It
Yeah,
becomes something of a joke,
it
really.
does.
We've talked before about Andor season 2, and we've got Krennic coming back. Will we have Tarkin? Could you have Vader? Could you have Palpatine?
Yeah.
Um, could you have Saw Gerrera in it? There's all sorts for to bring little cameos in the series. Some we've seen before, some not. Jin's father seems more likely to appear.
I, I I was thinking that only the other day. We're bound to see him. I suppose what you, having just seen Rogue One again today, right at the start of the film, she's in a prison cell. So you could see, even if it's only for sort of 15, 20 minutes at the end of Andor season 2, some sort of like epilogue, which is like Jin's story about how she ends up in that cell. That might be quite a nice touch. So, I mean, with her talking about this, is this her trying to sort of like, I've actually already filmed this. I'm sort of kind of teasing it, sort of thing. That
Could
would be
be
quite
quite
nice.
often you find that to be the case.
Yeah,
What does interest me is obviously they're invested quite deeply into the foundations of the Rebel Alliance.
yeah,
So we may see more of the likes of Saw Gerrera's character, and as Jack suggests here, it could be a little bit fun to have her as a kid as a cameo in the background of Saw's story. That's
yeah.
maybe one way to include her.
I mean, this does cover, is it 4 years? I think they're doing 4 blocks of three, aren't they? Three
Yeah,
episodes, 1 year. So we could have possibly a slightly younger version of her. Although, I mean, I don't think she's aged too badly since she's filmed this anyway. So I mean,
she's still looking all right.
Cassian still gets away with it
Yeah,
technically being young. So yeah, so I'm sure she could. Bit of a bit of
Jack
makeup.
pointing out as well, we're still getting some K2 as well. I'm trying to forget that, Jack.
Yes, yeah.
Don't
You're
don't
trying to
don't,
forget
don't
that.
do droids.
Not a droid.
But yeah, it's one of these things where you've got an incredibly talented actress that you would love to have back in Star Wars, but have
Yeah,
they written the story so well that there really isn't room for a meaningful role for her?
yeah. And here's a little bit of trivia for you. Felicity's dad used to work at the same newspaper that I worked at, but he'd left by the time I got there. But at least
Ah,
we've got a slight connection, you
just a slight connection, just enough of a
know.
connection there.
Yeah.
That I think chews up everything we can speak about on Jabba's Court this week with regards Jyn Erso, Paul.
Yeah, it would be nice to see her back. I don't know how they would do it, but if they did find a way, I would welcome it with open arms.
Yeah, I think so. I think I agree. And on that note, we can say that Jabba's Court is part of Good Morning Tatooine, your weekly recap of all the latest Star Wars news, and it's released as its own video every Wednesday at 7 p.m. So be sure to check out Jabba's Court on Fantha Tracks TV.